What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast here on a wonderful Monday where we are kicking off week 2 of NFL free agency, or maybe in some people's opinion, it's like the first week of free agency because they don't feel like the Lions have done enough. I'm not really sure where you may land on the spectrum, but we are going to be definitely talking about some of the moves the Lions made over the weekend, as well as ranking some of our favorite free agent signings to this point. And in segment 2, we're going to start looking ahead because I do think there are a number of things that the Lions still need to do in order to help get this roster into contention. So we're going to talk about a couple of those different things. But before we get into that, let me first introduce my amazing co-host. First and foremost, we have your senior editor over at prideofdetroit.com, Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD over there on Twitter. Ryan, how are you feeling this week?
Feeling good. Happy pre-St. Patty's Day, Miko. I don't know if you celebrate.
It's, well, a birthday trumps that. My youngest will be 9, so I guess that technically trumps St. Patrick's Day. So
it absolutely does. Yeah.
I'll find a way of getting something green in on the day. I don't know. Maybe we'll find a way of decorating her cake green or something. I don't know how she'll feel about it though.
You got to give her a pinch or something, right? Like if she's not wearing green, just a reminder, maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. She's very well aware that her birthday's on St. Patrick's Day, so I feel like she's ultra prepared because she doesn't want any extra attention than she's already going to get.
A lot like Brad Holmes, huh?
Right. I mean, listen, it's probably a little bit along the same lines. I think a few people would definitely love to pinch Brad Holmes at this point. We also have a guest here filling in for Jeremy because he is on vacation right now. Morgan Cannon's here. Morgan, how you feeling, my guy?
Man, good for Jeremy. It's 40 and really, really windy here in Detroit. So hopefully the weather's better where he's at. And yeah. And I'm, as someone who's pretty Irish, I don't really care about St. Patrick's Day. I'm just going to get some corned beef, man. It's like any other Tuesday,
See, now,
is it tomorrow?
That's a nice move. Yeah, it is tomorrow. Yeah. Trust me.
Corned beef.
I had to be reminded too, because I'm like, oh, St. Patrick's Day is on Wednesday. And it's like, nope, the 17th is definitely on a Tuesday. So my week is already off to a really weird start in terms of me keeping track of the days. But with that said, let's transition into talking about the Lions free agency moves, especially the ones that they made over the weekend. Not a whole lot of activity, but again, still adding some pieces. Brian, in some key areas, I think, maybe not the areas that fans want them to, but if you were just being objective to where the Lions roster is, they go out there, they add another member to their secondary and Roger McCreary on a 1-year deal. And then they also add to their tight end room with Tyler Conklin coming in as well, former CMU alum. So again, probably not the signings that people were expecting, but still 2 good signings that add quality depth to this roster.
Yeah, 2 moves that, again, I think you don't have to spend a day 3 pick on this, right? And I think as the roster continues to round itself out, there's been a lot of these moves that Brad Holmes has made. I think arguably, the one move that he's made that person's going to be an outright starter is Cade Mays at center, right? Everybody else seems like this is the backup, or this is a guy who could end up playing some snaps for us because of injury, whether it be any of the guys they signed, right? Or if it's, hey, when you talk about McCreary, maybe McCreary's going to be in there where who knows where he kind of fits in. I think Christian's another interesting name. We'll talk about him as well later in segment 1, but they have some defensive backs that they've added, and I just don't know how it's all going to shake out. But even a guy like Tyler Conklin, you expect Sam Laporta to be there. You expect Brock Wright to be there. Tyler Conklin's that depth guy, but we all saw last season how quickly things went sideways once the Lions were running out of tight ends and they were, false starting and lining up in illegal formations and such. So a veteran guy, I like that they went and got a veteran guy, but it just also continued this trend of, like I mentioned, filling gaps, but also all on 1-year deals. This is all short-term stuff that the Lions are doing, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, Morgan, I was going to say, that's probably one of the more interesting things that I've noticed with some of these signings is that it's a bunch of 1-year deals on a bunch of young guys too. It's not like you're giving a bunch of 1-year deals to guys that are in their mid to early 30s. I think Roger McCreary is about 26. Christian Izien is also about 26 or so. So it's an interesting approach that Brad's taking with these signings.
Conklin's the oldest, right? He's 30.
I was going to say, yeah. Or late 20s, but yeah. So either way, I feel like they're raising the floor, right? I get they haven't made a lot of splashy plays, but hear me out. There was a period, Ryan just said that thing about false starting and everything, when the Lions were down in the dumps with tight ends. Do y'all know how many times live I watched them throw a screen to Ferkser or to one of those tight ends? And I get it, in practice, they have to make them believe that they're going to throw it to them. But the floor was so once Laporta and Wright got hurt, it was bad, man. They couldn't execute, and it just limits you. like not being able to like put one or two, definitely not two, one competent tight end on the field at a time. So a move like Conklin, McCreary, like you can do a lot worse than having, like, if McCreary's your starter because someone gets hurt and he's a starter for 6 weeks, like you can do a lot worse than that, Ryan. You know what I mean? Like he gives you like a lot of like practical experience. So I don't know. I don't hate it. I'm still waiting for other moves that we're going to get to, but I certainly don't hate them. We talked about it in a video Miko and I did. They're raising the floor.
Yeah. I mean, guys, there were 6 tight ends that caught passes for the 2025 Detroit Lions. And beyond Sam Laporta, Anthony Fursker, like you mentioned, Morgan, and Brock Wright, can you name the other 3?
Zylstra.
Yeah,
no.
he caught 3 passes. Giovanni Ricci and Ross Dwelly.
I do remember the Ricci hype.
Ricci and Rucci. Yeah, dude. That's what I'm. Oh, yeah. See, and that's exactly why the offense, among other issues, but like they couldn't block anybody. You know, It was tough, man. It made things really tough.
Stat correction: Ricci had 3 games, 1 target, 0 receptions.
There we go. That's really good.
He had an opportunity. Opportunities were given; they just weren't capitalized. I think one of the other things to like about the Conklin signing, though, again, vet, but someone who's been fairly durable, Ryan, and you're infamous for pointing out that the best ability is availability. You're talking about a guy that has played at between the least amount of games he's played in the season is 15. So like he's somebody that can be out there on the field and be quality depth. And obviously there's been a lot of speculation. Actually, correction. He actually played his lowest amount of games last year, which was 13. But prior to that, it was 15. But with the addition of Drew Petzing, there's been a lot of speculation of like, hey, will the Lions run more 13 personnel? Will they, go out there and have more 3 tight end looks? With a guy like Conklin that has, kind of a proven track record in the league, again, not by any means a burner or anything like that, but just reliable tight end that can block, go out there and give you a couple of good receptions, only has 15 drops in his 8-year career. Like, it's a nice addition to your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he's such an interesting guy to look at his career because at one point he was a guy who was getting 80 plus targets a season. Like his final season in Minnesota, a couple of seasons with the Jets, like he was getting targeted fairly often. So like also graded out well in terms of like drop grade from PFF, and that's just because he doesn't really drop the ball. So I think that goes back to Morgan's point of you get a guy who's a veteran who you can trust to line up in the right spot, maybe catch you a pass and make a play when you need him to. But also, like you said, Miko, the idea that the blocking, right? Like pass blocking, run blocking, a guy who will know his assignments and know what to do. And again, we're talking about tight end 3, but I feel like maybe he could even press Brock Wright a little bit for tight end 2, just in terms of being a veteran guy and different from those other contract signings you mentioned, right? Like a lot of those guys were 1-year deals in their 20s. Well, this is a guy with a little bit more experience, and I think it speaks to what happened last season and not ending up in that same spot again.
Yeah, and I think to kind of pivot to the other guy that they signed over the weekend in Roger McCreary, I think he's another guy that could really challenge for a starting spot, right? Like we talk about Cade Mays obviously being a starter. We talk about Conklin maybe challenging Brock Wright for that tight end 2 spot, or at least giving the Lions maybe a little bit more cushion if Sam Laporta isn't quite ready to start the season, if you need to kind of roll with those as your top 2 tight ends. But Roger McCreary is someone that I think will be in the thick of it when we talk about who could potentially be the starting nickel. I know last year I was about to say Emmanuel Mosley, and that is not the right name. Ennis Rakestraw was obviously the front runner for the nickel spot, but I think by having McCreary, it also just frees you up to allow Ennis to kind of fluctuate between where you think he should be playing best, right? Do you want him to be on the outside? Do you want him to be on the inside? McCreary is somebody that I think could really challenge. Good size, very physical corner. Spent most of his time in Tennessee, obviously played a couple of games in LA last year as well. But somebody that I think, once again, is another player that we can lump in that category of raising the floor of your secondary.
Yeah, McCreary, if I'm looking at it, like if I'm Rakestraw, I'm like, hey, I got to come ready to go, like come camp. But it also, like you mentioned, Miko, say they both are playing well and you want to get your best 3 on the field and you can kick Rakestraw, like, hey, let's try you outside for a little bit. And we're, obviously speculating on a lot here, but just getting a veteran like McCreary just gives you options. And I just wonder, is it like, can you bring Avante back too, or is that overkill at the nickel safety kind of guy, you know what I mean? Like with Izzian and everybody else now?
Yeah, I think it really depends on like what you think you have in Izzian, honestly, Ryan. Like when you kind of look at your secondary right now, like you can absolutely afford to bring in another safety. I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye if they decide to bring back Avonte Maddox. I think everyone would honestly probably let like a sigh of relief out. But you have Christian Izien, you're bringing in Roger McCreary, you re-signed, Rock Sin as well, somebody that you were experimenting with at safety as well. So there is some versatility. And then this is a position where, like Ryan, I know you said it earlier, they don't necessarily have to address this group probably with a day 3 pick, but you can. Like if you want to find young talent to add to that safety group, you can still do that on day 3 of the draft so that you can kind of round it out and have a bunch of like really good competition, which I think is the other thing that's interesting about the 1-year deals, is that it kind of has to breed competition.
Yeah, I mean, who's playing for the next contract, right? You have Dan Jackson back there too. Izien's an interesting name. I think when you look at how it's all going to shake out, I mean, so much of it is dependent upon Brian Branch's health, right? I think we kind of get the understanding that Kirby Joseph is going, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, maybe you guys feel differently, but like I get the feeling that Kirby Joseph's going to be ready to play.
Me too.
Right? Like it's just going to be like a pain management, pain tolerance kind of situation, and like what he can do from week to week on that knee. I feel he's going to be more so ready to play than not. And if he isn't ready to play, then I wonder if he's ever going to be ready to play ever again. You know what I mean? So, but like with Branch and the Achilles, maybe you do bring Maddox back. And when Branch is healthy, then that's a problem that you figure out later. But McCreary, it seems like based on played a little bit of outside corner early in his career with Tennessee. I also noticed that like he was charged with 7 touchdowns against him as an outside corner primarily in his first year in Tennessee. So maybe they move him into nickel and he's given up 4 total touchdowns over the past 3 seasons. Yeah, so maybe he factors into playing nickel. You signed Rock Yassin too, so that's a guy who, again, they started him out at safety in training camp, needed him at outside corner, so he's got that versatility and flexibility. There's just a lot of moving pieces, and I think that's something that they've always kind of prioritized, right, Morgan? Like they want guys. While it's nice to have outside corners, everybody else is fair game. Move them around all you need to.
Yeah, and it just makes it easy if the injury bug does strike, you know what I mean? But is Thomas Harper still under contract too? I think he is.
He is, yeah.
So that's he had some serviceable, he had some downtime, some downtimes as well, but he also was serviceable at times. And actually, he just got to avoid some of those big hits, man. There's a couple of weeks in a row where he, like, brother, you're not that big. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but just maybe,
he got knocked out early in one of the late games, right?
Yeah. As soon as the play happened, I was like, oh, great. Yeah, because you could tell. But it's competition, man. It's like they've been talking about it. Now they're kind of being about it. And I still think there's, they're going to add to it. Like they want to, someone had posted, I think it was, they had like the Lions is like the 6th best roster right now, like through like the, whatever, 2 weeks of free agency or whatever. And I'm like, dang, like here we are. Everyone's throwing a fit.
I was gonna say, well, let's address that in the second segment because I have a different opinion entirely on that. But with that said, I think like let's talk about some of the other free agents, which we already did a little bit in the last podcast. For those that probably don't get a chance to watch like our live streaming, podcasts and things like that, we typically do something called a list cast where whatever the topic may be, we typically give like our top 5 of that specific category. We're going to kind of bring that to the podcast in this segment right here, where let's talk about some of our favorite free agent signings to date, at least as of right now, which granted, if the Lions have made any signings while we're recording this, we don't know about it. So you can't hold those ones against us. Let's all just kind of give like our top 5 and then we'll kind of just like discuss accordingly. So Ryan, do you want to kind of kick us off here?
Yeah, I think for my number 5, I would probably put Larry Borom, just because I'm intrigued by his year that he had last year in Miami, stepping in for Austin Jackson. I think the assumption was that he's just going to be the starting tackle, which I don't think that's plan A. I think that there's another plan in which the Lions have a starting offensive tackle other than Larry Borom, but I do view him as an upgrade over Dan Skipper. I view him as a guy who has that left, right, whatever you need to do. I think that he probably projects well to be a good 6 offensive lineman. So I'll put him at number 5. I'm a little bit more intrigued by some of the other signings, but I think you can do a lot worse than what they did with Larry Borom.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's where I would also have Larry Borom, and kind of for a lot of the same reasons. I think there is always that intrigue of, once again, we kind of got his contract numbers, I think, over the weekend, and it has the potential, I think, to get up to like 5 or 6 million with incentives and things like that. So it at least gives the illusion that they're going to at least give him an opportunity to win a starting job, right? Whether or not he wins it, could depend on what the Lions do in the draft. You could potentially deal with whatever additional moves they decide to do in free agency. But I still like the optics of him being your sixth offensive lineman, being quality depth, being somebody that can play either tackle spot as well as either guard spot as well, because he has that in his bag as well. So yeah, for me, I'm kind of right there with you with having Borom at the number 5 spot. Morgan, how about you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to go Borom, man. And it's not really a knock on him. It's just I'm more excited about 4 others. But I do agree with y'all, and I think this is going to be a theme here. I want to kind of keep track. But I would agree Larry Borom is a definite upgrade over Dan Skipper. Okay. And I kind of want to go one by one and see what y'all think. But yeah, I'm glad. Listen, I'm not a Dan Skipper hater, man. I'm just glad he's coaching. That's all.
I was going to say, that's Coach Skip to you from now on. Whenever you have to talk about Dan Skipper, I'm going to remind you and be like, it's going to be Coach Skip from now on.
Coach. All right, I got you.
The one thing about Borom's contract, though, can't be a good sign for Giovanni Manu, right?
No, it doesn't. No,
it's not.
I would agree.
He's got an uphill climb this summer.
I think that's Manu's dream, man. Like if he can push Borom, like forget trying to do anything else. Like if you can push Borom a little bit, but yeah, I agree. Ryan.
All right, Ryan, what about your number 4 spot?
Man, looking at the 4 spot, like I really enjoyed exchanging questions with Bucks Nation to learn a little bit more about Izzian. But I think I'd still probably have him at 4. I think he's just an intriguing guy from a like cheap contract, gonna bring special teams. I think he's probably more than likely not going to make the roster. Kind of depends on how things shake out, but he's an interesting name just because I don't know where he's going to end up. Is he going to play nickelback? Is he going to play safety? Is he primarily just going to be a special teams guy? Is he going to be inactive some weeks? I don't know. Like, I just want to see him in the summer, but I think that's part of the intrigue that you mentioned, right? It's all these 1 year mid-20s guys who are looking to carve out a bigger role. And I like some of the stuff I read over on Bucks Nation where like a lot of people were kind of sad to see him go. They're like, he's a guy who just needed more of an opportunity. And Morgan, I think he's going to get that opportunity in Detroit, at least in July.
Yeah, and he's a little higher for me. So I'll differ a bit here. I'm going to go McCreary, but not a slight against. I'm very happy to have McCreary because he has experience starting on the outside at nickel. And if he can push some of these young guys, like if, God willing, Terrion and Ennis they're playing football in late July and August, then that's good because they might need it. So I'm going to go McCreary at 4. And it's another one that raises that floor. But where you at, Miko? Who's your 4th?
Yeah, I'm actually going to, once again, I think we all have different options. I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin. I think, once again, getting a solid tight end 3 is a really good move for the Lions, considering, once again, there are still some questions about like how ready Sam Laporta will be come the regular season. But the optics and the ability to run like true 13 personnel with a tight end that like, it's not a throw-in. It's not a guy that's like, oh, like, yeah, he's been on a couple practice squads or things like that. Like, this is a guy that's had a very proven career. And so it's someone that I think that opposing defenses will have to be mindful of if you trot out Brock Wright, Sam Laporta, Tyler Conklin, and regardless of whether it's Pacheco or Gibbs in the backfield, like things are going to get very interesting for defenses when it's like, okay, like how do we match up in this situation? So I really like the addition of Tyler Conklin at the number 4 spot. Morgan, how about you kick us off with your number 3 then?
My 3rd is going to be Conklin for all those reasons you just named, Miko, because it gives them like hopefully Laporta and Wright are ready to go. And I do agree, like Conklin could push Wright for some like tight end 2 snaps just because I'm not a hater or anything, but there's some stuff left to be desired last year from Brock Wright. Too often was he whiffing on blocks and, one of the culprits that the running backs are getting hit in the backfield. So yeah, Conklin just raises I'm sure Petzing like went to Dan Campbell's like, hey, I'm really excited, got a lot of weapons, but we got to do something about this tight end room like yesterday. So,
Yeah, and Ryan, I personally like the fact that they went out and got a tight end 3. It didn't have to again, I don't think we know the contract details for Conklin, but I doubt they had to pay heavily for him. And I know there was a lot of talk going into the offseason like, oh, it's a good tight end class, and could the Lions potentially spend pretty big on a 3rd tight end? I'm glad they found somebody that's very serviceable, but more than likely is going to come at a pretty team friendly deal.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's a safe signing. It's a signing that really, it covers your butt, and maybe things don't go well and you end up in the same spot that the Lions were in last year. Hopefully this is something that safeguards that and doesn't have your tight end production and reliability fall off a cliff.
No, absolutely. All right, how about you lead us off with your number 3 pick?
So for my number 3, like I'm gonna put Roger McCreary there just because of all of the experience that he has and his nickel. I kind of view that as that's going to be a camp battle between him and Ennis. I see that camp battle between him and Ennis. Who's going to win the nickel spot? If it's somebody else, maybe it's Izzian. I don't know. Maybe it's Nick Whiteside. I don't know. Like it could be anybody at this point. Like I don't know who's playing nickel cornerback, and I think Miko. That's why we talked about Amik being such an important re-signing because that would just stabilize everything, right? Hey, and again, we keep on talking about inside, outside, all the versatility and stuff. Amik could do that. He could be called on to play a little bit outside corner, and you need that though, right? Like we've seen that, like Tyrion with DJ Reed, with Carlton Davis the year before. Amik Robertson was there to step out and play outside corner in a pinch, whether it was in the middle of a game or it's going to be week 18 of the biggest regular season game in the history of the NFL, and you have to guard Justin Jefferson. Go do it. And he did it. So, like, having that guy, hopefully McCreary has some of those chops where Morgan, you need that guy to slide over. I'm hoping it's him. I'm hoping it's not first year actual meaningful snaps Ennis Rakestraw.
No, I think that'd be putting yourself in a tough spot. If he looks really good through camp and they want to throw him out there, like good, but then we got to see it when it matters. But that's kind of my only one where I'd side with who the Lions didn't re-sign. Like I would have probably rather had Amik just because we know Amik and we know, like I know he didn't play his best football last year, but still you can do a lot worse than Amik Robertson at nickel or outside. So, but I get. On the other hand, I'm like, I get why they didn't pay him what he got in Washington.
2 years, $16 million. It was like almost, I think it was like 9.3 guaranteed.
Yeah. Which, that's a chunk of change, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially if the idea was to, again, introduce more competition specifically at that position group, like you do that with Roger McCreary, which is kind of why, like with my number 3, I'm going to cheat, and I kind of have Izzian and McCreary at like a tie for 3. And it's kind of for some of this, like the reasons that you both listed. I think McCreary gives you the experience and the high play at the nickel position where you're like, hey, like, this dude can definitely come in day one, compete for the starting nickel spot with Ennis, and could potentially win it, and you would feel good about him being your nickel corner. If, again, worst case scenario, he's somebody that can at least maybe compete outside or flex outside in certain matchups, certain situations. But there is something about Christian Izzian that, like, I'm just like, that dude, like, gives me Amik vibes, like in terms of just like how he carries himself, how he kind of like talked during his press conference. He seems like a type of dude that's like really looking forward to, like, if the goal is to compete, if the goal is to go out there and win a job, I don't think you're going to have to like really say much to Christian Izzian to get him going. And I really love that as somebody who's going to have a lot of versatility when you talk about being able to play the nickel, being able to probably compete at a safety spot. And at the very least, you know that he has special teams versatility. So it's a toss-up between those two, and I would hate to have to leave one off the list. So I'm going to leave them both at my number 3 spot because I think both of them are going to add a lot of value to this Lions roster, and they may end up pushing somebody else that we didn't expect off this roster just because of how hard they compete.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to say that all of the people that we're listing off, they could end up playing 100 plus snaps for the Detroit Lions on offense or defense, be it any of these guys.
Yeah. It's definitely like, Morgan, like you can tell that there's like a template or definitely a specific like thing that Dan and Brad were trying to like pinpoint with some of these early signings.
Yeah, and I know we just talked about Izzy, and did y'all both name your 3? Your third?
Yeah.
I'll go first then. Izzian's my second, man, just because I was reading like what Ryan did, like the content when he talked to like the Bucks writer, and then I watched his press conference, and he has like, I'm not trying to be weird, killer in his eyes. Like when he talks and stuff, I'm like, oh, this kid, he wakes up ready to go. Like he doesn't need to get, like y'all just talked about, you don't have to, he just wakes up like, you know what, someone might have disrespected me already today. So I'm going to have to go show them that's not going to, you know what I mean? Like those are the DBs that are like, I love them because, I'm really high on Izzian. Like I think he might press to like be a day one starter. I don't know where, but I think he's going to start. I don't know why. I think I'm just really high on Izzian.
He gives me Amon-Ra St. Brown vibes, Ryan. Like when you like hear him talk about like, yeah, like I was one of the last recruits at Rutgers. I went undrafted, had to earn a spot here. It's like, oh, this is a dude that's like, that has a boulder on his shoulder and it's coming everywhere with.
I mean, but that's a little bit of Dan Campbell in his end of the season press conference, right? We got to kind of get back to who we used to be, and they needed to add some of those guys. Sounds like he could be one of those guys.
We might have a couple camp fights this year, guys. Like it might actually get a little spicy this year at training camp for the Lions.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and lead off with my second. I'm actually going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. I love this signing simply because of just energy. Like, I don't know how great Pacheco's going to be on the field, but I don't think there is ever going to be a moment where you're going to be like, hey, Isaiah Pacheco isn't bringing it this week. Like, I think he's literally going to run over a ton of people, and it's going to be exciting. I haven't been this excited about a running back since Jamal Williams in terms of energy, and when he talks, you're just like, oh, this is going to be exciting. Like, I'm probably going to watch every single Pacheco interview that actually happens all season, because you can just it's funny that when they were talking about the whole Sonic and Knuckles thing, and he's like, hey, you guys can call me Taz. I almost jumped out of my seat because I'm like, that's the energy he gives. As someone that's a Tasmanian Devil fan, that's absolutely 100% the energy he gives, and I can't wait to see it on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have Pacheco at 2. I have Pacheco at 1. And I'm super stoked about Cade Mays. It's awesome. The Lions, that was arguably their biggest need outside of offensive tackle, right? Getting a guy to come in and, like we talked about, play center, keep Tate Ratledge at right guard. That was a huge signing. I'm more excited about Isaiah Pacheco, though. Isaiah Pacheco is going to carry the ball, hopefully 150, 155 times. But that's appointment television on Sunday, is to see Isaiah Pacheco run the football. And I'm excited from the standpoint because, again, you're getting a guy who is coming into Detroit, doesn't want his career to be over, but he needs to prove that he is a guy that you can go out and sign on the market next year for 2 years, $15 million, or 3 years, $25 million, or something like that. And you know what I mean? He's looking to get another contract. This isn't the end of the road for Isaiah Pacheco. He's just had a couple of tough years of injury luck, whether it was the fractured fibula in 2024, the MCL thing in 2025. But talking to Pete Sweeney from the KC Star, this is a guy that is going to fit in here like a glove. You want to talk about having that Amon-Ra St. Brown in you. He talked about how when he wanted to work at getting better at catching the football, him and I think it was either the running backs coach or the wide receiver coach, they were out in front of his house and it got too dark and they just turned on cars and turned on lamps and they ran routes out in his front yard while it was dark and used car lights to illuminate the field. That's a guy that eats, sleeps, breathes football and wants to keep doing football. And he's going to prove it here in Detroit. The upside on that, Miko, the upside on signing Isaiah Pacheco, it could pay dividends come December, come January, hopefully come February.
I think that's the thing that's really crazy to think about too, because I know everyone's going to look at last season and the season before and be oh no, he's lost a step. I think people really don't give enough credit to the broken leg that he suffered in 2024 and the type of impact that had on him the rest of that season, as well as just how dysfunctional the Chiefs offense looked as a whole in 2025.
Yeah. Sweeney said take 2024 and throw it out the window. He's he was not the same guy and they rushed him back from injury.
Yeah. So you take a player like that has that type of hunger, Morgan, that type of drive and that type of as fast as he is, he's perfectly fine with running through your face. You get him into a stable offense that is hopefully on the up and up with the addition of Drew Petzing, with the addition of Cade Mays, hopefully with the addition of another, starting caliber left tackle and things like that. And you might get the best version of Isaiah Pacheco here in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm super disrespectful and somehow forgot to put Pacheco in my top 5. So I apologize if you ever see this, Isaiah, but yep, I should have. So yeah, I agree, man. I don't know how I left him off, but I said the other day.
Just did what I did. You should have just did what I did and been oh, he's a tie for 1. Because that's what I did with McCreary. When I got to 3, I was like, nope, it's a tie. I don't want to disrespect anybody.
I should have done that. But I completely agree with Ryan. If he's in that 150 to 200 carries range and he's over 4.2, 4.3 yards a carry, oh, buddy, this offense is back with a capital B, man. So I think he's a good barometer because we know we know Saint, some of those guys, we know they're going to eat. But if you can get Pacheco and he turns around and gets 2 years for $16 million and for the Colts or something next year, then worked out for everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say it worked out for everybody in that regard. Morgan, I'm assuming since Ryan had Pacheco at 1, I'm assuming you and I have the same one as far as it goes when it comes to Cade Mays. I just think like once again, I said it last week. I love the fact that the Lions were intentional about getting that void in their offensive line fixed. I think they could have definitely tried to prioritize a tackle if they had went out and maybe paid Rasheed Walker or someone like that. I think we ought to be like, oh, okay, like they really feel like Tate can play center and that tackles a bigger need. But I don't care what Brad says the rest of the season. You saw center as a big issue and you were like, we can't have Tate play center. Like it's not going to work. And so I really do appreciate the fact that they went out there and they got a guy that I think is on the up and up. I do think is like, I mean, admittedly, from like his own mouth, he at least admitted like, hey, I'm getting better. I feel like I'm definitely on the upswing of my career in terms of learning how to play center. And when you look at like his size, his athleticism, I think he can thrive in an offense that is going to prioritize the things that he does well, which is probably just like, hey, use all 6'6", 340 of you and go forward and take as many people with you as you possibly can.
Yeah, he's got long arms too, man. Like he's kind of a strangely built center, but in a good way. It's not a bad thing. You know, I've watched 2 games of his so far on the all 22. Just heavy hips, heavy hands. You know, not great in space, but you know, don't pull him a ton. You got Panay and Ratledge and these other guys, and Mahogany if he starts. You got other athletes, but if you want to get downhill and mash on dudes, like Jeremy brought it up, it was like Jerron Reed and I think
Kenny Clark.
Kenny Clark, thank you. Yeah, it's like two movers, people that move humans for a living, and he held up, man. So that gets me excited because that was need number 1 for me. Like you can figure out tackle in the draft, maybe sign another veteran, but if you can't keep Goff's front porch clean, then what are we doing here? You know, it's not going to work.
Yeah, Ryan, any thoughts on Cade Mays?
I mean, obviously he endeared himself to everybody when he said his favorite play was duo, and I
got excited. Excited.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be because that's what they need to get back to. We all agree that they need to get back to that. And you know, I mean, when duo was working, it was the Baltimore Ravens game, and it was Dave Montgomery in what looked like his best game of the year. If they can get back to that for 17 games, that's awesome. And I do agree. Like I think Cade Mays is a guy who you paid a premium because of the upward trajectory that I think his career is on. Like you had to pay that premium despite only a handful of starts in his NFL career at center, and a handful of snaps. So I'm like I said, the thing I'm most happy about is that it keeps Ratledge at right guard. If not anything else, right? You have a guy who has at least played a couple seasons at center. You don't have to move the guy that looked pretty darn good his rookie season at right guard, and you get to keep him there. You don't have to move him. I'm just kind of sick of the offensive line shuffle. Like that's when problems start to arise. So hopefully they can get 5 guys, their best 5 out there. I don't care what order it's in. I don't care if Panay's on the right or Panay's on the left. That doesn't make no difference to me. Like just get the 5 best out there, put them there, and then just run duo.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I think a few people have said, and I'm in that same boat where it's like this is where Hank Fraley can really flex his coaching muscles, right? If you can continue the upward trajectory of a Cade Mays and he turns out to be Pro Bowl caliber type of center, like you're definitely everything that everyone says you are. Again, that with the continued improvement of a Tate Ratledge, maybe if you can bring on Christian Mahogany or Miles Frazier, if that group of young offensive linemen that you have under your wings continue to develop, like this offense is going to continue to thrive, whether they're running a zone scheme or whether they're running duo, like whatever the case may be, like they will thrive in that system. And it's the same thing that Righteous Felon is doing in terms of like thriving in the system that they have over there. I sent over to Ryan and Jeremy earlier this weekend. Righteous Felon has a new product out there. And when we're talking about duo, they apparently have a duo of their own because they're combining their hickory meat sticks with like an actual cheese stick. So now you basically get like 2 products in one. I can't tell you guys how exciting that is, even from somebody who's lactose intolerant, but I'm still going to try it at least once. And my wife is just going to have to suffer through it. So once again, the Pride of Detroit podcast is brought to you by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. It's the jerky that fuels the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein, and each stick has 8 grams. Trust me, if it's good enough for the Lions, it's going to be good enough for you too. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They use locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef and prides itself on superior quality. revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. Like I said, you guys need to go over there. Definitely check out this new duo pack that they have. But also, while you're grabbing a couple meat sticks, also check out the the honey heist flavor meat stick that they have. It is absolutely fantastic. I mentioned it last week. My wife is still hounding me about where her order is. Turns out it was her fault. She didn't put in our address. So now, yeah, I wasn't about to just let her badmouth Righteous Felon like that. This is a company that absolutely delivers when you put in your order. So trust me, you want to go over to righteousfelon.com, use the promo code POD15 at checkout and get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code POD15 at righteousfelon.com. Now, when we get back from our break, we're going to talk about not only some of the other moves that the Lions have made, but what the Lions need to kind of do in the future. Because listen, this is only the second week of free agency, and a good portion of the fan base is getting a little antsy in terms of what Brad Holmes is doing or what is he not doing. So we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more right after this. And welcome back to the Pride of Detroit PODcast. Segment 2 here, we are going to be focusing on basically week 2 of free agency, as well as what the Lions need to just continue to do when it just comes down to filling out this roster and making a competitive team that can actually, contend for a division or actually push to get to a Super Bowl. And I think one of the biggest things, Ryan, that has been like kind of rattling around in my head ever since like this weekend is how much of the Lions approach do you think is, kind of on Brad Holmes versus Dan Campbell in terms of just like how slow they've kind of been to adding some additional talent on that defensive line.
It's interesting to think about, is there a disconnect, right? Because if you're setting it up as Brad versus Dan, is there a disconnect? I think that the picture is starting to come into focus. And I know Jeremy, he wrote an article about the youth movement in Detroit, and we've hit on that in the first segment, talking about these 1-year signings for guys that are in their mid 20s. I don't know where they rank now after the Conklin signing, but prior to that and the McCreary signing, I think Jeremy put out that tweet that said that they were the second youngest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that Dan embraces that. I think Dan, going back to 2021, like, it's a challenge, right? It's about getting the best 53 guys on the roster, and then the competition stuff we talk about all the time, Miko. It's playing into that, right? It's these 1-year deals where there's an opportunity to maybe carve out a role for yourself. Maybe you end up sticking around like Rock Ya-Sin, right? Maybe you stick around like Malcolm Rodriguez and you're going to come back. But it also provides that flexibility, and these are the signings that, Jeremy's talked about it. I agree with them, but the margins, right? These margin signings, whether it was Roy Lopez last year or Grant Stewart or Zach Cunningham or Rock Ya-Sin or Avonte Maddox last season, right? For the most part, like, Brad does a pretty good job of rounding out the roster. It's just, I don't think people were expecting that on week 1 of free agency. They were expecting maybe a little bit more money to be spent. They were expecting, the bigger signings to come before maybe what's to come. Like, the Lions are certainly not done, and we're going to talk about like what needs they still have to address and what we think those needs are that are most important. But I don't know if I view it necessarily as a disconnect, and not saying that you were suggesting that, but I think that you have people that are kind of staking their allegiances right now, right? There's a lot of people that are name calling and saying that Brad Holmes is a scout. He's a glorified scout in a GM chair. And you have people who believe in Dan Campbell. And I think that there's that wedge that's starting to be driven between the two, but I think that they're still working lockstep with one another.
Yeah, Morgan, I think that is kind of what I was getting at in terms of like, I think there are people that look exclusively at like how the roster is being built, and they feel like almost, or at least the way that it's talked about, is as if Brad Holmes is just going rogue and doing whatever the hell he wants with no consideration of Dan Campbell. And I feel like, to Ryan's point, like, there has to be a marriage of the mind still going on, even as this roster is being filled out.
Yeah, man, that was their entire premise when they were hired back in 2021. It's a collaborative approach. And can you imagine, and I know Brad Holmes is a big guy too, you're just doing whatever you want with the roster and you got to go answer to Dan Campbell like, hey, yeah, I got nothing for you. And then Dan's like, no, we're going to talk about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that people think Brad's just going rogue, man. And me and Miko were talking about this before. Like, what was the splashiest, the position most people talk about as edge? Was the splashiest signing Jalen Phillips in Carolina for?
Yeah, I think he was like the biggest deal. Was it 4 years, 120 million?
20 million.
Yeah. Are you guys signing Jalen Phillips to that contract?
No, dude. That's a Trey Flowers, you know what, signing if I've ever heard one. And that's not a disrespect to either of them players, but that's not what winning organizations do. People who are going to compete. You think the Panthers are going to be? I could be wrong. The Panthers could be in the Super Bowl next year, but do we think they're going to be? No, we don't.
They lost their starting center.
They were in the play. I was going to say they were in the playoffs last year.
That's true, and the Lions weren't. But I don't know, man. That's my biggest thing. Like, I do agree. That's an excellent point Ryan brought up, like about the order of operations. Like, he's filling out the roster, raising that floor in March, where a lot of people are not used to that. But you got to let things. That 5 for 120 or 4 for 120, excuse me, is crazy for Jalen Phillips, and that's a nice player. Like, good for him. That's crazy. I'm sure the people said that when the Lions signed Trey Flowers, whenever that was too, that year, 2018 or 17.
Yeah, and I think like when you talk about it being, a crazy offer for Jalen Phillips, it's because like it's a guy that hasn't put up 10 plus sacks in a season, right? It's a guy that hasn't been seen as one of the prolific pass rushers in the league, but at the same time, like this is where in a similar way, but it just at a more premium position. It's very similar to the Cade May situation where it's like, well, we're gambling on upside because he's 26, he's young, he's proven it in the spots that he's been in that he is a quality pass rusher. Hopefully with like this much investment, putting him alongside a pretty talented defensive line, you're going to get the best out of him. But yeah, it's a big contract to live up to. But I still think people look at, okay, like they can probably get behind the idea of like, hey, the Lions weren't going to spend big on a Jalen Phillips. They weren't going to spend big on a Trey Hendrickson and Odafe Owe or something like that. But I do think there is that prevailing thought, Morgan, that like, is Brad being a little too passive? Or do we have to look at this as it's being calculated just because that's the only other way that we kind of explain what's happening or what's not happening?
Part of me, I think some of that part of the fan base, and I'm not telling anybody how to fan so long as you're keeping it respectful and not saying like putting grown men and what kind of images using AI slap and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But like you can't. It's tough to just like make a like, okay, oh, it's March 16th. This is as good as the roster is going to get. Like I get it, but like I feel like some of that fan base, they just want something big to happen just for the sake of it happening. Like, oh, the Lions signed. When me and Ryan were just talking about it, that happened in 2018, man, they went crazy. Trey Flowers, Jesse James, Justin Coleman, boom, boom, boom. The Lions were the talk of the day. And that resulted in a lot of bad football. Because, so it's a balance between both. I completely agree with Miko saying too, like it's somewhere in the middle. And if he does nothing else, like if they sign like a Cam Jordan to play that end opposite of Hutch for a year, like on some mercenary stuff, or a Clowney, do you think that would like chill people out a little bit and like get them to be
yes
like, okay,
and no.
Yeah,
I think we talked about this last week, right? I think there's an element of it where it's like absolutely yes, where it's like, oh great, you went out and signed a veteran pass rusher that still has a good amount of juice left. It can still impact the game in Cam Jordan. I think depending on what that contract looks like, though, someone may argue like, okay, so you got Cam Jordan. Let's say you get Cam Jordan for like $7.5 million. Would you rather have Cam Jordan or would you rather have Arnold Ebiketie from the Falcons, who's like a younger player that was kind of like on the uprise? Like, I think that's where you start. Again, maybe it's nitpicking, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, well, if that was the value that you wanted to pay for a pass rusher, why didn't you continue to get younger at that position, just like you did at all the other ones?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point when it comes to potential criticisms, right? It's like, oh yeah, you addressed the edge position, but you signed a guy who's 37 years old in Cameron Jordan. So I already know the backlash that's going to happen, right? That's the defense against the dark arts that you need to learn when it comes to the offseason. But it'll be the same with any veteran edge rusher. They're going to hope that they're going to say that they should have signed someone else. But again, it's that opportunity to at least go into the drafts without your pants around your ankles, right? Like Larry Borum at least allows you the opportunity to say, hey, our guy isn't there at 17. Our guy isn't there at 10, and we can't really afford to move up. So maybe we're going to punt until pick 50, or maybe we're going to punt until the end of day 2 and use some of those picks that we have on day 3 to move up in the 3rd round and grab a tackle that we do like, whoever that may be, right? I think getting a veteran edge rusher allows you to do that at the edge position, much like, the Larry Borum thing kind of worked out with tackle. But I think that there is at least room to say, what about Boye Mafe, right? He got 3 years, $49 million. didn't break the bank for Cincinnati. It'd be one of the splashier moves that Brad Holmes has ever made in free agency, though, right? Like, I mean, Cam Sutton was a bigger contract. DJ Reed was a bigger contract. But outside of that, how splashy has Brad Holmes gotten in free agency? Right,
Well,
like Boye Mafe would rank up there with any of those other guys in terms of the dollar amount that he's handing out. So
I would have liked
that was one of the things that
Mafe. So go Miko.
No, I mean, I think you can throw Mafe in there. I think you can throw Ebiketie in there. I think you can throw Chubb in there. You look at the deal that Bradley Chubb got, not nearly as big as I think some people probably would have expected. 3 years for $43.5 million. Like, I think he got a lot of it guaranteed, but like there were deals out there to be had. And once again, if the idea is like, hey, we're going to bring in a veteran to play opposite Hutch and maybe subsidize that with a couple of younger guys via the draft, I can get behind it. It's just, once again, it almost kind of feels like you're pushing all of your chips into the center of the table on like a pretty sizable gamble when it's like, well, there were some proven guys out there that you could have had at reasonable cost, right? Something that isn't Jalen Phillips or something that isn't Trey Hendrickson or Odafe Owe. And Ryan, to your point about like, hey, like when has Brad ever kind of had like a splashy move? And when it comes to the edge spot, like I think that's also, again, another reason why he gets criticized so heavily at that position specifically. It's hard to, I always buck at people that want to say he's a terrible GM because it's not just the 2023 draft. It's literally every draft class up until like the 2024, 2025 classes, right? Where like things kind of got a little rocky and they got a little cute. But like he's found talent in the draft at other positions. He's found quality talent and free agency at other positions as well. Edge has kind of been the glaring hole where it's like outside of a mid-season trade for Zadarius Smith, not a lot of moves you can point to at that grouping where you're like, oh yeah, Brad got good value there that spanned multiple seasons.
In terms of signing guys?
Signing or drafting.
I mean, he did have Aiden Hutchinson fall into his lap.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And
I think that's like, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I can see the criticism from the standpoint of, well, then you also drafted Josh Paschal that draft. And that was a guy that you didn't even want to see in July. You just said, no, that contract did not toll. That contract is old. Like, we are moving on from you. Right. Yeah. And that's an unfortunate set of circumstances, but I don't know, maybe people don't want to hear the youth movement. Maybe it is get a veteran guy, draft somebody, but then you have Ahmed Hassanin. And I'm not trying to say that you should go into the summer saying, well, Ahmed Hassanin could be our starting edge defender opposite to Aiden Hutchinson, but at least maybe there's some more semblance of a plan. Right now, I understand how people can look at this and face value say, there is no plan. What the hell is the guy doing? Right? Like, all these guys that we just listed are signed. Mack, Mafe, Phillips, Draymond Jones, right? I think you can point at that and say, well, the Patriots went out and got an edge defender. How can the Patriots be spending money? They went to the Super Bowl. You got a team that went to the Super Bowl and they're not content with their edge position. We're going to get Draymond Jones too. Like,
I mean, you got teams like the Commanders that have like double and triple dipped into the edge position. I think this free agency class. Like,
but what do both of them teams have though, babies?
I mean, yeah,
quarterbacks on rookie deals. Quarterbacks on rookie deals. I'm not saying,
Well, Morgan, then why didn't Brad Holmes do the maximum restructure?
Because I'd like a rookie quarterback one day, babies. We're going to be honest here, okay? One day I'd like that to happen for us. And then I love Jared, but
yeah. And if we can bring it back home a little bit, like in terms of just like keeping it somewhat realistic for fans that feel like the Lions are missing out on so much. There are young pass rushers out there that I think would still fit the Lions, that would still be good moves where, yeah, you are kind of doing the same thing that you're doing with Roger McCreary, the same thing that you're doing with Christian Izien, where you're going to gamble on some upside. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is out there. Bounced around between Cleveland and Chicago last year. But Morgan, like that was a dude that we were like, yo, like could probably like fit in pretty well here in Detroit. Really good run defender. You talk about Cleveland Farrell, another guy that's kind of bounced around across the league a little bit, but played in 8 games last year, had 4 sacks. Like good potential of someone that's trending up that, like, again, on the not yet 30 type of, age range, and you can potentially bring them in just to compete. If that's what the Lions are trying to do, like these are guys that are on the younger side showing at least improvement in their careers. And it's like, yo, let's see if they can prove something here in Detroit and help improve a defense that drastically needs to step up when it comes down to getting to the quarterback.
Yeah. And to be honest with, listeners, like, I don't think they're going to do anything splashy unless it's like the Falk got kid from Auburn at 17. Is he at Auburn? Or yeah, Keldrick Fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he falls, like, if they take him at 17, that might, that'd be nice because he's got a lot of tools that would work well in tandem with Hutchinson at that big end role. Like, they want someone who can set violent edges. So it's a big, I know everyone's like, just get a pure pass rusher. And that could happen in the later rounds. I don't think they're going to do that at 17 because they want somebody who's going to play 50 to 70 snaps, not 70, 50 to 60 snaps a game. You know what I mean? So I think as long as let's judge the room here, like, middle of July when we're getting close to training camp, and then, like, hey, if it looks competitive from, like, there's like 5-6 like edge rushers that can get after it, like a couple that Miko, like Tryon Shoyinka, God, that's a name. He can do a lot of, I think he can play the Sam a little bit, like he could stand up. So he could give you some options
play like
too.
3-tech a little bit. Like he's a big kid, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was a problem, I feel like, every time the Lions played the Bucs. So there's things they can do, but I get the trepidation because ideally, in an ideal world, yeah, they'd already have their Michael Williams opposite Aiden Hutchinson, but that draft didn't work out how we wanted it to.
Did you mention Epinesa? I mean, Epinesa might be one of those moves that doesn't move the needle for people, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, great, you grabbed a run defending edge. Thanks. Or crushing the can from Brad Holmes. But it would be a move that would make sense in the grand scheme of things because it, again, as all these other moves have done, you don't have to tie your wagon to Epinesa, right? Epinesa can be a guy who's on the field on third down because he's on the edge and Aiden Hutchinson is kicked inside. And then you have maybe the guy you draft at 17 on the opposite side, right? Like it's one of those things that doesn't lock you into, we need 150 snaps from AJ Epinesa this season. Otherwise it's going to be a complete failure.
Players like Epinesa would have helped, like in the Pittsburgh game, man. Like rushing the quarterback's great, but good Lord, the Lions could not set an edge to save their life that day against Pittsburgh. And y'all saw what happened. Getting footballs shoved up their noses. So
yeah. Well, outside of the edge, though, there are other needs on this defense, other needs on this roster in general that the Lions still probably need to address. I kind of want to get from you guys just like what your top need that, like, hey, would still love to see the Lions address this in a big way. Morgan, I'm going to start with you. What's a position that you still would like to see the Lions address?
Tackle. I'd like, Borum starting wouldn't be the worst thing. There's worse situations out there because offensive line depth is an issue for everybody across the NFL. But I want the offensive line to get back to its 2023, 2024 form. And I think you need another difference maker at tackle, man. So, and if Mays is good, then you're off and running and the season will be what we want it to be. So pretty cut and dry. Where are you at, Ryan?
The player might be on the roster already, but I think that they need a starting caliber nickel cornerback. Like that very well could be McCreary. It very well could be Ennis. I'm leaning more towards McCreary and that he's probably the presumed front runner unless Ennis outplays him. I don't know. I feel like they could do better. And maybe that's just speaking from a point of spoiled, I guess, with like how well Meek played there for a bit. Brian Branch's rookie season, right? Like the Lions have had some pretty good nickel cornerbacks, and it feels like in a room where there's already so much uncertainty, like that's one of the spots that you can upgrade because you're not tied to hey, Terrian needs to develop into this outside cornerback because we moved up to draft him in the first round. We signed DJ Reed to this contract. He has to be out there playing, right? Doesn't really have that at like nickel cornerback. So like if we're taking edge off, I'm going to say like that spot is an important one too.
I feel the same way though when it comes to the starting linebacker spot. And I'm going to channel my inner Jeremy here. I'm much more positive on Derek Barnes than maybe Jeremy is, but I do think if you're telling me that like Trevor Nowatzki is like your answer for the Sam role, it's not a bad answer, but at the same time, I also think that you could still potentially find something better. Right. And again, whether this is someone that can exclusively play the Sam or someone that can like fluctuate between Barnes and that person between playing the Sam and Will spot, I do think the Lions could definitely upgrade in that regard. Yes, you brought back Malcolm. Yes, you brought back Nowatzki. I think those are great signings, and I think they're great depth of linebackers and definitely could be very situational. But if you could get another guy to kind of replace what you were getting from Alex Anzalone, like that's a tough ask. And it may not be something that you can necessarily find in free agency, but in maybe something that you'll do in the draft. But I think that's another big hole that Brad still has yet to kind of fill when you feel like, oh, okay, like your linebacking core is going to be just as good, if not better, than it was last year.
If your offensive tackles that have a round one grade Morgan, if those are off the board, if your defensive ends that you had a round 1 grade on are off the board, but Sonny Styles is there, to Miko's point, Sonny Styles is the pick.
Yes, it
Listen
is.
here.
That will. My God,
if me and Morgan, when me and Morgan are live streaming, it might just get X-rated on that live stream. Like it's gonna get wild if Sonny Styles somehow falls. Like it's gonna get weird. Man. It might be our one and only time that we're able to stream the draft.
And if people are like, oh my God, like there's gonna be people who hate it, but I encourage you to go back and watch like the early 10s Niners with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman.
Yeah,
and just that could be us, man. That could be us. So
I mean, you may not even have to go that far back. Go back to Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw when Dre Greenlaw was still like healthy.
True. God,
that was they were nasty.
There's a reason the Niners were always playing late. Yeah, man. It can erase a lot of. It's like having the safeties, and if the safeties come back, that spine of that defense all of a sudden is made of vibranium. So that'd be sweet. We've already broached that subject, Ryan, and I'm sure people are whatting us right now, but that's okay.
I don't care.
I mean,
get over
it's
it.
Fine. I want linebackers who eat with their hands.
Yeah, Martellus Bennett. Listen, man, I got you. I don't want linebackers who care what they with. I love that.
That's great. All right, before we get out of here, I think this would be another little fun thing to do. We haven't done this a ton. I think we've done this probably in one other situation, but I think it'd be cool to do like a what is more likely situation, because there are a number of rumors that are still kind of floating out there as the Lions need to kind of, round out their roster. There are some potential re-signings that they could make. How likely they are, we can definitely debate that. But with that said, and Ryan, I'll start with you. Which do you think is more likely that the Lions re-sign one of these three players? Would the Lions be more likely to re-sign Taylor Decker, DJ Reader, or Marcus Davenport?
You're just contractually obligated to say that third name.
Until he signs with another team, yes. Until that is a ghost that will haunt us until someone else, please sign Marcus Davenport.
Yeah, we have proof of concept though. Brad Holmes gave Emmanuel Mosley 2 seasons. After it didn't work a second season, it was we're drafting all the cornerbacks. So I think that maybe the more likely thing to happen is DJ Reader comes back. I'm not certain that Detroit, with the way that things ended in Detroit between Decker and the team, not saying that there's any animosity, but it'd be kind of weird to go through all of that just for Taylor Decker to find out that his market value isn't what he thought it was, and then to come back to the Detroit Lions. Like, there's only so many times you can post a graphic of you coming out and back in and then back out of the tunnel again. The DJ Reader thing, had the Lions just took care of business and signed Roy Lopez, DJ Reader becomes expendable. I think that there is still like a sneaky, I can't call it a need, but there needs to be another guy there that you can count on. I think having a veteran there, I don't know if you guys would agree with this, but like PFF's free agency rankings, they had DJ Reader at 21st highly ranked free agent that was available on the market. I don't know if I got that from Reader's time here in Detroit. Not saying that he wasn't good, but I'm saying, there's a lot of names that are after DJ Reader on that list where you're like, oh, Boye Mafe's 3rd. I don't know about that, but for this team, Miko, I do see you have Tyleek, you have Aleem, but you don't really have that dependable third guy to rotate in there. I think it makes a lot of sense for DJ Reader to be that guy.
Yeah, Morgan, how about you?
Reader's definitely my most likely, just because the Decker, I don't know how many more posts you can do, the tunnel thing, that might get a little redundant. Davenport, man, it's going to be tough just because everyone's going to look at him and be like, you haven't really been available, man. Like, and then when you were available last year, it didn't really even look that good. And did you rush back? So there's a lot of questions. I think he'll be on a roster, but I don't know that he's going to have a guaranteed roster spot anymore like he did in Detroit. Like, I think that those slips might have run out for him, but I hope we're wrong and he gets, picks up somewhere else. I do agree about bringing Reader back though, because I think they ideally have Aleem spend more time at the 3 tech. And then you have Tyleek and Reader, maybe Tyleek having more of the share now, leaning more into the first round pick at the 1. And that's kind of how you move, like a 60-40 type split when you do have the 1 tech out there and you want to defend the run well. So you could do worse. I just don't know what the market's going to be. What do y'all, what do you think, Nico?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing, right? So Sport Track has DJ Reader at a projected market value of like just under $4 million, right? 3.8 million. And I think that's like solid value for a guy that brings veteran leadership that you know is going to be solid in the run game. And again, if you want to just give DJ Reader the start because he's the vet and continue to have Tylee kind of moonlight as both a 3-tech and hopefully, he's developing as a pass rusher, he can kind of play a mix of nose and 3-tech, then like I'm not mad at it. But again, even worst case with bringing back Reader at that price tag, it's still quality depth. Somebody that if Tyleek is playing the nose, you don't have to have him out there playing, 50, 60 snaps. He can go out there, play 30 to 40, and him and Reader can rotate, and you're not losing anything in terms from a talent perspective. Not to mention, Morgan, you know this as well as anybody as well. Like defensive linemen age like fine wine. Like the older they get, they just kind of get more and more settled into grown man strength. And it's just like, nah, he's great. As long as he doesn't have any back issues, no knee issues. Like DJ Reader is someone that I would absolutely love to have back, at least in the middle of your defensive line for veteran leadership, for depth. And again, just for kind of keeping that core of your defensive line at least somewhat intact, because you're already about to have a couple of, moving pieces when you talk about, some of the pass rushing depth.
Yeah. And Reader might have, the play might have declined like a little bit the last year or two, but still a premier run defender, still someone that you probably can't move even with 2 people. And that helps Jack Campbell and maybe Sony Styles as well. So it's all good. I'm just trolling now.
All right, guys. Well, I feel like we covered a lot in today's podcast. Anything else that you guys need to get off your chest before we get up out of here?
It's only March 16th. There's a lot of off season to go.
Breathe.
I think, yeah.
Eat some
I think
corned
we need
beef
to remind
tomorrow.
people. That's a good one, right? Eat some corned beef, get some green beer if that's your thing, or just
makes you happy.
Drink. Yeah, do something to enjoy the day, right? Maybe we're waiting until the 17th and Brad's going to just like spoil us with a bunch of good luck in terms of draft signings. Who knows what the case may be, but at the end of the day, like if you guys want to stay locked into any more free agent news or who the Lions may be like, potentially interested or anything like that, you can always find that information over at prideofdetroit.com. We have new articles going up every single day. Guys are grading some of the signings, even some of the re-signings as well. So there's a lot of information that you can find over there on the website. If you want to stay locked into the video portion of the content, you can always find that over at YouTube or on Twitch. This one won't be on Twitch because, again, we're pre-recording this, but you can find it over at YouTube. I'm at youtube.com/prideofdetroit. And like always, if you guys are listening to the audio version of this and enjoying the podcast, we highly encourage you guys to read some reviews. I forgot to go check and see if we had any new ones. But again, if you do leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on the podcast because we want you guys to know just how much we appreciate your guys' support. So with all of that said, I'm Miko. He's Ryan. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch and listen. And we'll see you guys in the next one.